A whole heck of a lot happened this week in President Donald Trump's quest to reshape the federal judiciary. The ongoing effort turned particularly hot this week as Democratic senators moved to block two of his circuit court nominations while two of his other nominees to top courts were grilled during a Capitol Hill hearing. That hearing was followed up by Trump announcing his seventh wave of judicial nominees, an additional 15 names that are about to be submitted to the Senate, bringing the total number of district and circuit court judges he's nominated to roughly 50, blowing far past the number of judicial nominations made at this stage of a presidency by any recent predecessors. That's in part due to the massive number of vacancies in the federal judiciary, which has swelled past 140. With all of those vacancies, if we don't have an increased pace of confirmation, it's just totally unsustainable. Carrie Severino, the chief counsel of the Judicial Crisis Network, a group that has gone to bat to defend Trump's nominees with large ad buys. But the week began with one of those possible confirmations getting shut down before the candidate could even get the process, essentially, off the ground. Democratic Senator Al Franken of Minnesota on Tuesday refused to sign off on Trump's nomination of Minnesota Supreme Court Judge David Stris for a vacancy on the 8th U.S. Circuit Court of Appeals. Franken said he could not support Stris, nominated by Trump in March, and would not be returning a blue slip to the Senate Judiciary Committee. That blue slip process is Senate tradition in which senators are able to give or withhold their blessing for a judicial nomination from their state. While not entirely uncommon for senators to deny a blue slip, several of President Barack Obama's judicial nominees met the same fate. Franken's move was just the first of 3 refusals from Democratic senators this week. On Thursday, Sens. Jeff Merkley and Ron Wyden of Oregon announced that they will block a judicial nominee for the 9th U.S. Circuit Court of Appeals who had been announced as Trump's pick just earlier that day. The duo said in a letter to the White House that they would not be providing blue slips for Ryan Bounds, an assistant U.S. attorney in Oregon, because he had not been approved by a bipartisan judicial selection committee in their state. Unfortunately, it is now apparent that you never intended to allow our long-standing process to play out, the Democratic senators wrote to White House counsel Donald McGahn in the letter, obtained by Politico. The pair later added, "The judicial selection process is not a rubber stamp, and the insinuation that our offices were purposely delaying the process is an indication of the partisanship with which you are pursuing this nomination." Franken, Merkley, and Wyden's moves to refuse blue slips emphasized what is the biggest roadblock for Trump as he tries to remake the courts, landing Democratic support for his judicial nominees in the roughly 30 states with at least one Democratic senator. While his nominees have received blue slips from Democratic senators in Colorado, Michigan, and Indiana, Trump has mostly avoided naming judicial nominees for district and circuit courts from states represented by at least one Democrat. While the denial of a blue slip does not legally restrict a judge from being approved, Glenn Sugamile, an attorney who is an expert on judicial nominations, told Business Insider in an email earlier this week that no circuit court nominees have been confirmed over objection of 1, or 2, home state senators, including under Obama. Roughly 80% of his nearly 50 nominations to such courts are from states that are represented by 2 Republican senators. Just 5 nominees hail from states with 2 Democratic senators. At the same point in his presidency back in 2009, Obama had nominated 9 people for vacant district court seats and 7 candidates for circuit court openings. Of those, 56% were from states represented by 2 Democratic senators, meaning 44% faced the scrutiny of at least one member of the opposition party before they could be advanced in the Senate. Al Franken, Joe Radel/Getty Images. The intent of the blue slip process is to have a more bipartisan consensus on judges who will serve in or represent a senator's home state when the president is of the opposition party, encouraging communication between the White House and home state senators before a nomination. Some conservatives were angered by the trio of Democratic senators moving to block the nominees. Severino said the practice is not something Democrats can be allowed to abuse, adding that it is not long-standing tradition for the refusal of a blue slip to mean a nominee cannot move forward. Democrats are trying to create a filibuster of one, she added. The blue slip refusal by a home state senator is virtually all the leverage Democrats have in the process, with Republicans goned.